Hello. I am having a chat today with Audrey Boulier, who comes from a company called Ingredia, and they are the ones who produce the lactoferrin that I use in Leapfrog Immune. And you know, we've been going a year now, and we get quite a few questions that are repeated. So I'm gathering a sort of a dossier of frequently asked questions, and I thought, who better than to ask than Audrey herself? Because if I'm ever stumped, I go to Audrey. So let's go straight to the source. And so here she is. Let me just bring her on. Is that working? Are you coming to me?
Yeah.
There you are. Hi, Audrey. That worked.
Hello. Yeah.
Good. How are you?
Good, and you?
I'm good, thank you. I did my first webinar ever last week on lactoferrin with my nutritionist, and I know that you've done many webinars before on lactoferrin, so I'm sure you could do it in your sleep. But
I think maybe.
I'm so glad it's finished now, because it's a lot of work talking about this incredible protein. There's so much to say.
Yeah, it's nice to do a webinar and to inform everyone on how it's working.
Exactly, and that's sort of what I feel my job, your job is just communicating as much as we can about all the benefits of this incredible protein that so few people know about.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I really wanted to bring you on for a few reasons. As I was just saying, you know, I've got a collection of frequently asked questions now that, you know, I was just saying, if I really don't know the answer, I come to you, and I thought best that I could just connect you now, you know, with any customers who wanted to ask questions of you. We've got a few, and but also, you know, I often get asked, why did you choose this particular lactoferrin company? And I often say, you know, look, their ethics, their practices, their procedures, I really like the way that they operate. And so I thought, again, why not get you on, and then you can tell people a little bit about, you know, what lactoferrin is, but also how you make your you know, the practices around lactoferrin, because milk, let's face it, can be contentious. But why don't we start with that? Why don't you tell us, before we get on to all the sort of benefits and the nitty-gritty of lactoferrin? Lactoferrin comes from milk. How do you source your lactoferrin then? Are they happy cows that they come from?
Yeah. So Ingredia is part of a dairy cooperative. So we work actually with farmer. The company is a farmer company. So we also communicate a lot on the well-being of cow, and they follows what we call the Charter of Good Breeding Practices. So it ensures the traceability of the animals. It protects the health of the herds, guarantee the animals a well and healthy balanced diet. There is also all the practices around how to collect milk. So the quality of the milk, the hygiene around the collection of the milk, and we ensure the well-being of the cows and the safety of the farmer as well. And there is also all an involvement around the environment with waste management, health and water quality. And Ingredia is trying to do more and more on this part, because we know that it could be quite difficult to be aware of what we can do. And actually in 2021, Ingredia received the Societal and Environmental Commitment Awards. So it's an acknowledgement, for its committed and innovative action in the services of sustainable dairy production. And it has its roots in a living territory. So actually, yes, we try to do the best. We try to communicate a lot with farmers and to improve every day the way of collecting milk and the well-being of the cows.
And I know when we've spoken before about this, you said that they come from the milk that you extract the lactoferrin comes from small family farms. So farms that don't have any more than 50 cows, so there's space between them.
Yeah.
And in the summer, they graze only on grass.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been sent photographs, and it looks sort of like pastural beauty. I mean,
Yeah,
I've used them.
yeah. Actually, we are a small dairy cooperative, so all the farms are located in the north of France, and it's, as you said, small farms with not less like 50, 60 cows per herds, and they have herbs, and they can go outside during summer and yes, what we're trying also to do is to be very close to the farm. So this is why it's only in the north of France. So it's a green area. And we also try to develop new category, I will say, which is via lacta, when we ask the farmer to have a minimum day of pasture for the cows and an accessible grazing area with a minimum meter square. So yes, everything is quite, it takes time
Yes.
for everybody to commit, of course, but I think we are in the right direction.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's why, you know, when I first spoke to your company, I really appreciated all the efforts that you make. I have been asked a few times, does it come from organic milk? But that's just not possible, because there's such little lactoferrin, isn't there, in a liter of milk, only 100 milligrams, that the sheer volume that one needs, unfortunately, cannot, at this point, one can't extract it from only organic milk.
Yeah, that's right. So as I said, it takes time to have the commitment of every farms and every farmer. So for organic, it is the same. It's a long time to switch in organic method. So this is why we cannot have all the milk, all the organic milk, and we keep the organic milk for the UHT milk consumption. And for lactoferrin, actually, because of the way, because we extract the lactoferrin from the milk cannot be milk anymore, and it will be used to make proteins.
Yes.
It will be used to make other milk proteins with a good, actually, also physical way to extract them and to keep the nativity of the proteins. So this is why for us it's too difficult to have organic lactoferrin, but hopefully in I don't know in how many years everyone will produce organic milk, and it should be possible.
Yes. I remember very early on, I was speaking with one of the dragons from Dragon's Den, which is a show. I wasn't on the show. I just was having a chat with this person, and they asked a very clever question, which is what you would expect from a dragon. What happens with the rest of the milk once you've extracted the lactoferrin? And I have to say, at that time, I didn't know. So it was the next question that I asked of you. And it is, of course, that there is no waste with milk.
No, there is no waste. So when we extract the lactoferrin, after what we have is the milk without lactoferrin. So it's still milk because there is so many, there is so little quantity of lactoferrin inside milk. So we use it to do proteins. So there is two families of proteins inside milk: the whey proteins and the micellar casein. So actually we extract both proteins, and it will have a function for nutrition as well, like sport nutrition, clinical nutrition, and we work also on high quality proteins for this type of proteins.
Whey proteins on shelves of health food stores, or for bodybuilding, etc. So it goes into things perhaps like that.
Yeah, it can be this type of thing, but also when we talk of micellar casein, it can go into high protein beverage for clinical nutrition. So people, for example, in the hospital, they cannot eat anymore, but they need to have all the macro and micronutrients into small quantity. So it's a very hard process, and the company needs to have very specific proteins. And actually, Ingredia is also expert on this type of proteins. So we are involved as well in nutrition, and we are trying to provide the best for the consumer.
It's amazing how complex milk is,
Yeah.
and all the benefits that it offers, and that you can extract these different proteins for different things, and it can be helping, as you say, people in hospital who can't eat full meals and yet can have the nutrition benefits of this protein from milk. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, and it's quite important because without enough energy, they cannot fight against infection or disease. So yes, it's quite important.
Very interesting. So now let's talk a little bit about what happens when you bring the lactoferrin into the sort of the central hub and you process it, you extract that lactoferrin out of the milk. Can you, I know I've watched your webinar of this, and it can get quite detailed, but if we do just a top level, how do you get the lactoferrin out? Yeah,
so there is a specific way to extract the lactoferrin. Actually, we need to try, the lactoferrin needs to bind to a colon when the milk will go through. So the lactoferrin can stick on the colon, and after we can extract it from the colon. But so this is a very complex process, of course, and we choose to have a very specific one, and we choose the less denatured process because lactoferrin is a heat-sensitive protein. So if you perform an heat treatment, you can denaturate the lactoferrin and lose some action. So this is why we choose this process, and we extract the lactoferrin at cold temperature with a chromatography process and filtration. And at the end, when we dry the lactoferrin, it's also a gentle drying in order to have the nativity of the proteins and to keep the bioactivity.
Yes, because it's very sensitive to heat.
Yeah, so thanks to that, we managed to have a native and very pure lactoferrin. But yes, indeed, it's a very complex process, and there is not too many competitors on the market. I think we are only two to do the lactoferrin from a non-heat milk process.
I realize that you're one of only two, because I think in the world there are maybe 12, 13 lactoferrin producers.
Yeah, there. I don't know by heart because
it's not.
I am in science, and I know that the marketing team know it very well. But yes, there is a few competitors on the market. I mean, more today than it was like 3 years ago. But so there is different process to obtain the lactoferrin. The main difference is on the raw material you will use to produce the lactoferrin from milk. So you can use raw milk, a non-pasteurized milk, as we do. You can use a pasteurized milk, and you can use as well whey proteins, because this is where the lactoferrin is in the major quantity. So if you use pasteurized milk or whey proteins, you have an heat treatment history. So it's meaning that the lactoferrin is not in its native form anymore. So this is why we choose the non-pasteurized raw milk in order to extract the lactoferrin. But of course, after we have very specific process in order to have a very good microbiological specification. So yes, I think we are only two on the market to do this process. The other one is in New Zealand.
I see. Okay, and I suppose it's more expensive, really, isn't it, to do it from the raw milk as well?
Yeah, it is more expensive because without a treatment, you need to add what we call microfiltration in order to remove all the bacteria, if there is some inside, in order to have a very safe product to consume. And this step is a very expensive one.
Yes, because one of the questions I had from Christina Turnbull was, you know, why is lactoferrin so prohibitively expensive? And I mean, you've just explained a very, very complex process there. And also the process that you specifically use is from the raw milk with all the extra processes that then requires.
Yeah. And as well, there is not too much lactoferrin on the market because, as you said before, there is a very low quantity of lactoferrin inside cow's milk. It's only around 100 milligrams per liter. If you compare to mother milk, it's 2000 milligrams per liter. So mother milk has a higher quantity than cow's milk. And because of this small quantity in the milk, it is difficult to have a huge volume on the market. And the price has been driving up the last 2 years, I would say even like 4 years, because of the Chinese interest of lactoferrin for infant formula. Because we know that mother milk has lactoferrin inside, and it's very good for the immune system and for other function for the babies. So if you want to mimic the mother milk, you need to add actually lactoferrin inside the infant formula. And as you know, China is a very big country, so there is a lot of infant formula, and the lactoferrin market was driven by that. And also from the last 2 years, it's more on the COVID situation because there is a global interest for immunity, and we know that lactoferrin has a very good action to boost the immune system. So this is why it's a very, I will say, premium market for this protein.
I mean, I know certainly when I first conceived of Leapfrog as a supplement, the price of between when I conceived of it and when we launched, the price of lactoferrin went up quite high. I mean, it actually almost doubled.
Yeah.
And this was it was explained to me that, you know, yes, the Chinese market is huge. They use it for their infant formula. Obviously, it's an extraordinary, you know, it's a key component of mother's milk, as you said. It does make it much more expensive, their infant formula. And then the other reason, of course, is I guess in the last few years there's been an interest in lactoferrin for its immune enhancing qualities during this pandemic. So that's really affected the price.
And one of the country who reacts the best to lactoferrin was Italy. A big demand on Italy during the COVID situation. We have a big demand of lactoferrin. Yeah.
Because they're already quite cognizant of lactoferrin. They know what it is, and so when the pandemic happened, there had been quite a few clinical studies that got attention, and then therefore there was an interest in it for its qualities, its immune support.
Yeah, they were aware, and I think it's also because one of the main famous team on lactoferrin to study science around it is also in Italy, and as well for probiotics. Italy doesn't have the same regulation as the other countries in Europe. I think they are more aware of the benefits of this type of products. Yeah.
I mean, out of all of Europe, I mean, at least one country is sort of really aware of it. Oh, somebody's asked me, Lorraine said, apparently we have some in our salads. What, lactoferrin?
I'm not sure.
I've not heard of that, Lorraine.
Yeah, me neither.
Saying, sorry, laugh out loud, saliva. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Lorraine, I was wondering what you meant there. Yes, and in fact, we're going to get onto that in fact, why don't we get into that right now, because it seems like the perfect time. We had another question from Margie Melitzo in the States, and she said, is it possible to know, because we do have lactoferrin in our saliva, in our tears, in our mucus, basically in all the fluids at the entry points to our body. Yeah. And you can go on in a moment to explain why it's there and what it's doing for us. But is there a way of measuring that? I mean,
yes.
Margie asked us.
Actually, we can measure it in finished products. We can detect lactoferrin, human lactoferrin, bovine lactoferrin, thanks to analytical tools. So it will depend if the area into your body can have we can collect a sample. I mean, we know that there is some lactoferrin into the brain. Obviously, it will be very difficult to have a sample. But for tears, saliva, plasma, and even other type of secretion, we can measure it if we have enough quantity inside, because we know that analytical tools can have some specification in terms of precision. So we need to have a certain quantity of lactoferrin into the fluids in order to detect it. So we can measure it. There is like HPLC, very specific tools, and actually we can detect if it's lactoferrin or not, and which type of lactoferrin it is, thanks to the sequences of the amino acid as well.
You sent me a little table through about the concentration in the different human fluids, and I was, between colostrum, milk, tears, saliva, secretions from our nether regions, and I was quite impressed by how much is in our tears. Actually, 2 milligrams per milliliter of lactoferrin in our tears specifically. That's quite interesting. So why don't tell us why. And
I'm not sure to know. No, I'm not an expert of why we have lactoferrin into tears. Actually, I know that the main function of lactoferrin will be on immune system. We know that it has also action on gut cells. So I think they have action on the growth cells, even maybe in the eyes, but I don't want to answer because I'm not sure of the action of lactoferrin into the tears.
Lorraine said I've shed a lot of that then. Yes. I mean, we probably all have over the last 12 months, Lorraine.
Yeah.
But I guess the point is that lactoferrin exists at these entry points to the body, specifically to try and quash any bacteria or viruses as they try to enter the body. So could you just talk us through now lactoferrin's action within the body just naturally before we even talk about, what happens when you put extra lactoferrin with a supplement into the body?
Yes. So lactoferrin has, it's an iron binding protein, and it has also action on viruses and bacteria. So of course, as you said, it has an action of protection. So it is the case in saliva, maybe in eyes as well. It's one of the function. So it will have an action on viruses, and it will prevent the viruses from attaching healthy cells. So there is different mechanisms of action, but the main one is that the lactoferrin is able to bind the virus, so the virus cannot recognize anymore any receptor and cannot bind to another cells. And for bacteria, it's quite the same mechanisms of action. Lactoferrin will bind to the bacteria, so the bacteria cannot attach to anything into our body, but as well it can be used as a recognition by the immune system to know that they need to kill the bacteria. It's like a signal for our body. And it's also can have an action of the growth of the bacteria by because it's a iron binding proteins, it will keep the iron, and the iron is necessary for bacteria to grow and to develop themselves. So this is how lactoferrin can actually act on viruses or bacteria.
Can I just repeat what you said? Because I find it, so fascinating that the body tells the lactoferrin that's already within the body that if there's a bacteria that is a sort of an enemy and it needs to be killed, and so it has a bactericidal effect. It can actually break down the bacteria walls, so it will turn on those pathogens. And then this other idea that I didn't realize actually before I started working with lactoferrin, that bacteria need iron in order to survive. Without iron as their food source, they can't replicate, they can't proliferate in the body, and lactoferrin binds iron to itself. So essentially it's starving bacteria of the nutrients it needs, and therefore the bacteria cannot proliferate, and it gives the body the chance to react, to mobilize itself.
This is one way as well. Yeah, this is very interesting. We call it, I don't know if it's a good translation, but the Swiss knife, like
Yes,
because it
Swiss
can
Army
do,
knife.
yeah, it can do so many things, and with different mechanisms of action, it's quite an impressive proteins.
Yes, it is. I mean, the Swiss Army knife of the human host defense system, I think
Yeah,
is the quote,
yeah.
because it really just, it does do so many things. Lorraine's just asked, how many would you have to take to spot virus or lessen symptoms? Lorraine, I think you mean in terms of a supplement, how much in a supplement would you need to take? Well, I suppose we could get onto that now. So what happens then if it already exists in your body, and we've discussed the fact that it's a key component of mother's milk, etc. Now, what happens when you put extra lactoferrin into your body? And then we can talk about the appropriate dosage.
Yeah, so as I said, lactoferrin has an action on viruses and on bacteria in a direct way, but lactoferrin has also an action on the immune system. So when you will have a supplementation with lactoferrin, lactoferrin has a positive action and will boost your immune system. So it will act on the different immune system we have. We have the innate immune system, which is the first defense barrier of our body. It's non-specific. So when you will have an extra of lactoferrin by supplementation, it will act in a way of prevention, because you will have more immune cell ready to react if something or an infection or a virus or bacteria come into your body. And the second action is on the adaptive immune system, which is the second shield of our immunity. This one is very specific. So it will recognize the type of viruses. So there is a type of cells called lymphocytes, and this type of cells can recognize the viruses and help the immune system to react faster, because it's already been there, so they can produce more cells in order to kill the viruses or the bacteria. So this is how it will act. So in terms of prevention, it will get your body ready to react, and actually in terms of infection, it will allow your body to react faster. So we call it an immunomodulatory proteins, because it will have an action of pro-inflammatory activity and also anti-inflammatory activity. So we know when you have an infection, you can have a fever. We know that fever, it's not bad. It's not you need to have it not for many days and not too high, but it's meaning that your body actually is reacting to the infection, so your immune system is working. So we call it the pro-inflammatory phase, and this phase will be faster with the lactoferrin, because it will help to collect every immune cell to work together. And after, there is the anti-inflammatory cells, anti-inflammatory properties, So it is a phase when your body needs to recover. So you will have, thanks to lactoferrin as well, a faster recovery, because of its anti-inflammatory properties. So actually, this is why lactoferrin is very interesting. It is because it's modulate. It will choose which way it will improve your immune system depending of prevention or infection or recovery. So it's quite impressive.
It's so interesting to hear you describe it all, and it is such a unique immune modulator, I think, in the body. It's to me, it's sort of like a conductor of a symphony, and it brings in all the cells that it needs to create this symphony of the body when it needs to fight an infection, and sort of speeds things up, but then it calms things down when the infection has been won. And I think that's what's critical, and that's where sometimes things can go wrong, when the body overreacts to an infection and then can't sort of control itself. It goes a little bit haywire. And lactoferrin can calm the body down and have these anti-inflammatory responses, instigate these anti-inflammatory responses. And it's just, I mean, it's quite incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's right, when you first start to read all the scientific information on lactoferrin, you are like, okay, really? Is it working this way? And actually, yes, there is so many proof and so many scientific paper published into the literature to prove the action of lactoferrin. So yes, I think it's quite impressive.
I mean, and I, as I mentioned, we did this webinar last week, and when you get onto its effects on the immune system, that is a huge, chunky sort of section of studies and clinical trials to back them up. But there's so many other benefits too that we don't even, that we don't often even talk about, from bone health, stress, to skin, etc. But I think, we're focused on immune health right now, and here we have something that is entirely natural, that works with our body, in sync with the lactoferrin that's already in our body. And I believe that's why it's so effective. It can have such a nuanced approach because your body recognizes it in a way that it might not recognize a plant-based remedy, for example.
Yes, and in terms of supplementation and dosage,
yes,
it will depend of what you want to do with your supplementation. If it's prevention, the clinical study show improvement from 100 milligrams of lactoferrin. So you can start with 100 milligrams up to 250 milligrams per day. Yeah.
So when we were talking about what we, the dosage for Leapfrog, certainly when I was trialing it at home before we made the supplement, we went for 250 milligrams. That was what was, recommended to us by various scientists. It's what's in a lot of the literature.
Yeah.
And certainly when I spoke to you and your team, 250 milligrams, that was definitely going to have an effect. And I guess I wanted to be sure, and it had worked with my own family. So 250 milligrams for prevention, and that's what we said would be effective for the pulse method way of taking it, 1 tablet per day. And we said month on, month off, to give your body a chance to create its own lactoferrin in those months off. I think cycling supplements is a good way to do it if you don't need to take it every day.
Yeah. I think because you also target the general population, so you need to have a very general dosage. One will be effective in every type of population. So yes, 200 it's a very good dosage. Actually, I used to take 250.
250.
Yeah.
200,
yeah, 250.
And then I say that when there's when you feel that the first symptoms of a cough or a cold, we go to 2 tablets, which is 500 milligrams.
Yeah, it's what we advise also with our consultant doctor to take at least 2 tablets. For COVID, we reach 4 tablets, 1 grams for when you have a COVID infection. So actually, it's a very safe protein. So even if you want to take more, you can take more, because it's very safe. There is no side effects, no toxicological effect as well. So yes, as long as you have enough quantity, you can go with a very high dosage as well. So.
And this is the thing, having done, just done this deep dive webinar, up to 3 grams, really, even for babies. I mean, it's because it's in infant formula. But when one is creating a product and you want to be as circumspect as possible, we don't really even talk about COVID for the obvious reasons. Yeah. But you said in your own experience, when you had COVID, you took 1 gram, so that's 4 tablets per day. But as you say, there are no issues because it's natural.
It's completely natural. Yeah. I took 1 gram for 10 days. And I mix it as well with essential oil. So yeah, hopefully I think it has good action in order to have a good recovery and not to have so bad symptoms with the COVID. Yeah.
Well, I think there are clinical trials happening all the time.
Yeah,
and
there
I
is.
think, and the dosage has been sort of 250, 500, 600 and more. And I think in the next few years, we'll start to see a real, which ones were the most effective. Was it less?
Yeah.
Did it need to be more? I think, the jury is probably still out a little bit, and it's a bit anecdotal right now, but it is ongoing.
There is a lot of ongoing study with lactoferrin, especially in the underdevelopment countries, because they do not have access to vaccine, and they need to find a solution in order to prevent or to help a good recovery. So lactoferrin is one of the protein in a lot of clinical trial in the Middle East, I think, and as well in Italy. As we said it before, Italy is well aware of the efficacy of lactoferrin. So they have, I think it's not yet finished. Some of them are finished, but what is difficult, it's more a cohort and not a specific clinical trial. So you don't control everything. Yes. They took lactoferrin, and there is also other parameter around. So I mean, we show that there is, for example, I think in Italy, one of the clinical trials showed that the negativity by the PCR test appears faster in the lactoferrin group compared to the non-lactoferrin group. But it's difficult to say it is only because of the lactoferrin supplementation. But obviously, because of the mechanisms of action on the viruses, and they actually show it with in vitro condition. So it's not into your body. It's you have cells, and you have it in an external way in order to see how it will react on the cells. And they show that the bovine lactoferrin has the same mechanisms of action of COVID-19 than on other coronavirus. Yes. So there is some. It's a very small pieces of science for the moment, but yes, I think it can help for prevention and to help your body to have a better recovery.
It's certainly great as an adjunct treatment, isn't it? To have something else in your arsenal as and when you need it. Why not? It's natural. So I think. Somebody has asked here about the age. So this Leapfrog, even though it says on this packet, it says for 12 and up, we are changing the packaging because we were going to do a Leapfrog Immune Kids specific version, but actually, having spoken to so many customers, it just makes sense to have everybody have the same box just for convenience factor, because there was never an issue with young children having it, because obviously it's an infant formula. So what we've said, and I think it's Lorraine, your 3-year-old granddaughter, you say, keeps getting chest infections with this help. So what we've said, what we will be saying on the next packaging that will be coming out soon, is that it's for 4 and above. And the reason we say 4 and above, Lorraine, is because of the zinc in it, because there's zinc and vitamin C. And 1 tablet of Leapfrog has got the recommended daily intake for a 4-year-old and above. I think it's between 4 and 7. So that would be the only reason why we say 4, because of the zinc specifically. But in terms of the lactoferrin, it's fine for 3-year-olds. It's fine for babies, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fine. And for the chest infection, actually, there is a team in South America working a lot of infants and kids, and they show that with the supplementation of lactoferrin, you have a decrease of the respiratory infection disease. So I think, yes, lactoferrin can help on these points. But of course, you can also discuss with your health practitioner on that to have what can be also had with lactoferrin in order to prevent it.
Exactly. And on that point, Hamid Merchant, who's our pharmaceutical scientist, he actually did a meta-analysis of 6 clinical trials of lactoferrin's effects on respiratory tract infections. So exactly that, so chest infections, and it's the results were really fantastic, and obviously, you know, showed that lactoferrin was efficacious. So what was that? Yeah. Where can you get lactoferrin for babies? There is a gel called Biogel, Biotin gel for babies specifically. Do you know of anything else, Audrey?
For babies, no. I know for kids, but for babies, most of the time it can be in infant formula. I think there is one French brand with lactoferrin inside for infant formula. But if you can find also maybe pure lactoferrin in lactoferrin supplement, and you can choose the dose you want to give to your infant if you mix it into the.
Oh, I see, Lorraine. I see what you're saying for your 3-year-old. Okay,
3 years old.
Let me make it. Okay, I tell you what you can do, Lorraine. You know, as we've said, you know, 100 milligrams of lactoferrin is effective. You can break that Leapfrog tablet in half, and you've got half the zinc in there. So that would be the thing to do. I mean, she's possibly almost 4, so, and then we say 4. So it, you know, 1 tablet broken in half in that case. Wouldn't you agree, Audrey?
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And DING and vitamin C, it's a very good combination with lactoferrin. We know DING has a very good, as well, immune properties, and the vitamin C as well. And we know that they are the two, vitamin C and DING was highlighting by the COVID situation as well. Vitamin C and DING, to have very good action on the immune system.
I mean, obviously, you know, we conceived of lactoferrin, of Leapfrog rather, well before the pandemic struck, and it just made sense when I was talking with my immunologist and pharmaceutical scientist and nutritionist, wonderful Emma Davies at Nature Doc, that you know, people associate, when they have a cough and cold, they think of zinc, they think of vitamin C. But actually, there is also a great synergy between the three. Once you bring in the lactoferrin, so it made total sense as a formula. And I think now in the time of you know, a pandemic, as you say, it's useful. So and zinc and cold, very, very well known. Zinc lozenges, there are studies behind that to show its efficacy against cold.
Yeah.
So shall we just quickly go through some of the quick fire FAQ questions that I get asked? So often get asked, can you take lactoferrin when you're pregnant?
Yes, you can take lactoferrin when you're pregnant, and actually there is a lot of clinical trial on pregnant women with lactoferrin supplementation, and it is also for the risk of anemia, because we talk on immune system, gut health, but lactoferrin has also a good action on the iron metabolisms. So it will provide and help the body to absorb in a better way the iron.
Yes, exactly. And in fact, our immunologist has done a meta-analysis on papers to do with pregnancy and anemia and how lactoferrin can help. That was just published this year. And then moving on to breastfeeding, it's also okay, isn't it?
It's also okay. And we've got lactoferrin inside the mother milk. And what is very interesting is also that the quantity of lactoferrin inside the mother milk can change according to if you have twins, if you have preterm infants. So it shows that lactoferrin is a very important proteins in terms of nutrition for babies, but as well for breastfeeding women.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And then on that subject of the iron binding, what happens if one has, and this sort of blows my mind, but if one has hemochromatosis, it's still okay to take lactoferrin. So hemochromatosis is an overload of iron in the system, that in the blood.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yes. It is. There is no issue to take lactoferrin if you have too high iron content into your blood. We ask our doctor consultant on that, and when we look at the scientific literature, there is not so much study on it, but there is some quote from scientists, and lactoferrin regulates actually the iron metabolism, so it can maybe help as well the people with a too high iron content into the blood.
It sounds too ridiculous to even to suggest that lactoferrin can do what the body, it does what the body needs it to do. So
Yeah.
if the body is deficient in iron, it gives it more iron. If it's overloaded with iron, it makes it releases
Yeah,
the
this
iron.
is crazy, but yes, this is how it works. Yeah.
It's extraordinary. Okay, so as we've said, if I have anemia, can I take it? Yes, indeed, it would be beneficial for you.
Yeah.
Now, allergies. Is there any connection with lactoferrin and allergies, or not really?
If you have milk allergy, of course, you don't consume lactoferrin because it's a milk protein, the one we produce. For allergy, it's a complex mechanisms. There is action on immune cells for allergy as well. So as lactoferrin has an action on the immune system, maybe it can be beneficial, but there is not so many studies on it. So I cannot answer and say yes.
I have read one regarding allergies and asthma, and that, I guess its mechanism is because it's an anti-inflammatory, and so it can help with the airway.
So it will depend if it's hacked on the symptoms linked to allergy.
Fine.
So yes, for asthma and for all what is the respiratory infection, actually lactoferrin has good action. So I will suppose for asthma it can be beneficial. But I was more thinking on if it helps your body not to react to the allergen. On this part, I do not have the answer.
There is not enough literature out there, scientific literature out there. Okay, and then what about if you have autoimmune conditions?
It's the same. I mean, it's a very difficult disease, and autoimmune disease, most of the time, the mechanisms is not well known. Mm-hmm. So I will say it's better to ask the health practitioner on this autoimmune disease. Yeah.
I know that Emma, our nutritionist, does suggest it with certain clients with autoimmune conditions. But again, if you do have a nutritionist, ask them, or a doctor. I think the more people ask their doctors about lactoferrin, the better, because then they have to look it up and learn about it, which is great.
Yeah.
And then the menopause. How can it help with the menopause?
I think you are more expert than me on this part, but
probably bone health. I think
bone health.
Bone health.
And on this one, because I was thinking hormones, but yes, when you have menopause, you have a risk of osteoporosis, and there is scientific effect that show that lactoferrin can act on the bone formation. It will inhibit the catabolism of the bone, so you will have less loss of the bone and higher synthesis of the bone. So hopefully it will reduce fracture or such of what you can have when you fall, when you are in the post-menopausal condition. But I think you still need to consume calcium and vitamin D in order to prevent it as well.
Yes, I mean, our lactoferrin consultant, our immunologist, who's also a lactoferrin expert, says that he recommends it to anybody over the age of 50, actually, because yes, your immune resilience wanes, but then you have things like for bone health, it can be really helpful.
Yeah,
so.
I met I think it was the first scientist to work on lactoferrin. So lactoferrin was developed in Japan by a milk company, and I met the former R&D manager from this company in Japan for the International Lactoferrin Conference. Yeah. And he was taking lactoferrin for like 70 years. And it looks like younger. Yes. I don't know if it was the lactoferrin I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to take lactoferrin every day.
Well, yeah, I mean, it has great benefits for the skin too. I mean, I'm going to be taking it for the rest of my life. My parents are taking it. I mean, we'll see. Watch this space.
Yeah.
Check in with me in a few decades' time. So, and I think, how does it help with asthma? Oh, Lorraine, we did just discuss that about the, it's more about the symptoms of the asthma, the inflammation.
Yeah. It's more on the anti-inflammatory properties of the lactoferrin.
Yes, exactly. Great. I think, oh, and eczema, psoriasis, cold sores, herpes simplex. I know that it can help with those viruses, the herpes simplex virus of a cold sore.
Herpes virus. Yes, it can helps actually to reduce the recurrence, the number of time you have these viruses. Yeah,
it's great because when you get a cold sore, I mean, if you are susceptible to colds, if you get a cold sore, you're likely to get it again and again and again.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
To take your lactoferrin or indeed Leapfrog at the very, very first sign, or potentially as cycling as a preventative, 1 tablet per day. I think that's it. You must be exhausted. I've literally bombarded you with so many questions.
No, it's a very interesting subject. So I think we can talk for hours on this protein. So yeah,
I think we could. I know that I certainly could. So maybe, Audrey, could I convince you maybe to come back another time if the questions build up again?
Yes, of course. It will be my pleasure to come back and to answer the question. And yes, as a producer of lactoferrin, I think it's also good to give communication and to help people to understand more how it works.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for helping me do that today. It's been really wonderful to have you on, and thank you to everybody who asked questions. And if you're watching this on IGTV after when I've saved it and you do have a question, please let me know. And I'm sure Audrey wouldn't mind if I email her
No.
that you might have. We can get those answered for you, because as we say, it's really important to get this word about lactoferrin out there and clear up, inform you. Great. Thank you so much, Audrey. I really appreciate it. And thank you everybody for listening.
Yeah, thank you. It was my first live and I enjoyed it. Thanks to you. Thank you.
Gosh, yeah. You didn't seem nervous at one bit, and we got on so easily as well together. So, I mean, you managed to get onto the live easily, so that's perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Audrey. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Bye.